Dave Aranda says TCU is very good, except when they do this.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Game Time, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. I appreciate you guys making this your first listen today and every day, especially at the beginning of Revivalry Week. Baylor and TCU, we're going to start covering it from all angles starting today. We will hear from Dave Aranda talking about what TCU is good at, what the worries about from the TCU side, and how Baylor can get after them. Plus, he gives a little insight as to why this defense might be struggling so much through the first 6 games of the season, something that he might not have anticipated through the first 6 games of the year. And it feels like they might finally be pushing the Sawyer for Heisman debate and why the Big 12 might actually have a huge vested interest in this. It's all coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. But we start where we start. Folks, it is here. It is Revivalry Week, and boy, is it coming at a awesome time for Baylor. It's coming off of a bye week, which is great, but you got to go on the road. And for TCU, you're back at home and you're coming off a game that you should be really PO'd about. Pedo about is actually how you should say it, but I understand for British people that might be tough and problematic. But TCU, a game they absolutely could have won at Kansas State if they just had the focus. We know that from a Baylor side. We have seen that before. We have probably seen that this season, if we're being quite honest. And it's one of, if not the most underrated rivalries in all of college football, baby. These two fan bases, as we know, do not like each other. I'm sure there's some other Baylor fans that could share these stories. Like, I detest UT fans for a totally different reason. Don't like the OU people, hit or miss on Tech people. The nastiest fans I've ever dealt with is TCU, and it's really not even particularly close. I think a distant second is BYU. Just kidding. No, they're great. TCU fans, nasty, man, nasty. And no one preyed on the downfall of the Baylor Bears more than TCU, other than the fact that I don't think they prey all that much. So this is always a fun week. And it poses a particular challenge for this Baylor team in that they're going up against a very similar team. TCU's better defensively. But when you look at the quarterbacks, Sawyer's better, but it's not by all that much. I mean, you're talking about two of the very best quarterbacks in America taking the field against each other this weekend in Fort Worth. It's going to be appointment television no matter what time it's at. So Dave Aranda, after the bye week, refreshed, got to watch a lot of film. What is it that worries you about TCU?
Their biggest threats, I guess.
They're explosive on offense. You know, when they don't turn the ball over, they are really effective at making explosive plays. And, you know, they've got receivers that can make contested catches. They've got receivers that can catch the ball, make a guy miss, and go the distance. And quarterback is really calm and poised. He can beat you with his feet. I think the O-line's improving. I think the running backs, they've got a committee over there, but they're all very good players. And I think defensively they do a lot. They pressure you. There's a game plan of the week that they got, and it's going to be a challenge for us to run the ball versus all the movement that they got.
A couple of things there. First off, running back by committee, but they're all very good players. I don't know. Dave might be thinking about the wrong team there. TCU is 16th out of 16 teams in the conference running the ball, but that's what makes Josh Hoover in that offense all the more amazing, because their offense is not that far behind Baylor's. They're both in the top 35. They both average 35 plus points a game. Baylor actually does 36. But what he says at the beginning there is what I talked about on yesterday's show, looking back at this Kansas State game. When TCU takes care of the ball, they win a lot. When they don't, they lose. And they've faced, I would say, 2 good teams this year. I'm still including SMU in that, and the other was Arizona State, and they lost to Kansas State, who I think is going to be a good team here in the near future. I think they're just getting better. by the week. But in their 2 losses this year, they turned the ball over 3 times in each of those games. Anytime Josh Hoover's thrown 2 picks in a game, TCU loses. And so, like, it's a pretty simple formula. That said, I don't know how much Baylor pounces on that. They have got the least amount of fumbles forced in the entire Big 12, which is not great in my opinion. But hey, maybe to you that's a little bit better. 11th in the conference, Baylor in forcing interceptions. There are 5 of them on the season. 3 of them came against Samford. The other 2 are Jacob Redding. So one's off Avery Johnson, one's off Kevin Jennings, the other's off a future plumber. No disrespect. But like that's what we're talking about. Baylor stat padded in that game. They're not a good team at turning the ball over, turning their opponent over. They're okay at turning the ball over. They're not good at turning the opponent over. They're just not good at it. So that is something that is so easy to get at TCU that I don't know if Baylor's going to get after them a little bit. Both these teams struggle defensively. TCU is about 30 spots higher in total defense than Baylor, which is still concerning. But both of them will give up explosive plays, will give up a lot of rushing yards, despite what Dave is talking about there. So this is going to be a good old-fashioned shootout. Like, I know I've said that a bunch of times before, but this is going to be a phenomenal kind of throwback not throwback this year. I mean, we're seeing a lot more of it this year. Throwback kind of Big 12 style. 61-58 comes to mind. People forget the year before it was 41-38. And the year after, in 2015, it should have been another 61-58 kind of game. But the good Lord threw a monsoon down on Fort Worth on Black Friday, man. That was just almost unplayable weather. And I'm not just saying that because Baylor lost. Like, it was genuinely very tough to play football in those conditions. So that is what we're going to see this weekend. And I think what Dave talked about in there kind of confirms what I thought about TCU on Saturday is that I'm not going to say like, oh, Kansas State didn't win it, TCU lost it. But like, if TCU had any kind of focus in that game, better decision-making, did anything in the margins, then they would have won that game. Instead, they were down 2-3 touchdowns for a good deal of the second half. And they kind of got their butts kicked in that game. But it's because they turned the ball over 3 times and Kansas State didn't turn it over. So neither of these defenses are good at turning the other teams over. Both offenses are very good at putting up points and explosive plays. If TCU gets held under their average of 35 points a game, they don't win. They're 0-2 this year when they score less than 35 points. Like, that's and by the way, obviously very similar on the Baylor side, right? What's the least amount of points? I think 35 is the least amount of points they've scored in a win this year. So it's goes both ways, man. If these teams do not score 5 touchdowns, they don't win football games. Entertainment value is going to be through the roof. And it's too bad that there's not a lot of national buzz around this because they're both going to be unranked, because this is absolutely the best quarterback matchup of the weekend. Every major statistical category has these 2 in the top 5. And in the ones that really matter, like passing yards and touchdowns, they're literally 1 and 2 in the country. Sawyer number 1, Josh Hoover number 2. Like, this is going to be it's going to be a frustrating game to watch, but it's going to be a whole lot of fun. And mainly the reason why is because both these teams struggle on defense as well as being great on offense. So let's take a look at Baylor's defense. Dave Aranda said something in his press conference that might have explained why they're in the 100s in total defense this year. He'll tell you why coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by Wayfair. Every style, every home. Wayfair back in the fold as we are in the second half of this college football season. Holidays are going to be here before you know it. Canada just had Thanksgiving, okay? We got the holidays coming up, and it's exciting, but you're getting your home ready for your guests and all the celebrations, man. That's a lot. Trust me, as someone who's going to get married to someone who really likes to host, it's a lot. Maybe your serveware needs a refresh. Guest room could use some new bedding, maybe some new decor up there. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready. From Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, outdoor inflatables, it's your one-stop shop for every room in the house. They make it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget. And with that free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. Get organized, get refreshed, and get ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAI. Let's try that again. I'm going to spell, I promise. WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Wayfair. Saying too much at that wedding. Every style, every home. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel, and they're putting down some bets on Sawyer Robertson to win the Heisman Trophy. NFL season is here. FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Just pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Whether you're the casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Once again, FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app. Get started. Back here on Locked On Baylor, Revivalry Week, the Bears and TCU, the most played game in the state of Texas. I think that's still the case. And it's a matchup of two of the best offenses in the country, definitely two of the best quarterbacks in the country, and two fan bases who are still a little uneasy, I would say. I would say both Baylor and TCU are in this kind of mushy middle when it comes to the fan base, in terms of both fan bases can't be terribly mad at where they're at 4-2. Neither one came in with a ranking, right? Both had some expectations going into this year. Both knew what they were bringing back was going to be pretty good. And I think both fan bases aren't entirely sold on their head coach. This is not going to get into a discussion of like, oh, what needs to happen for Dave Aranda to get fired? Trust me, I'll do it another day. But I think it's fair to say that both the Baylor and the TCU fan bases are still just kind of on uneven ground with the direction of their program, specifically under their current head coaches. Obviously, Dave Aranda for Baylor and Sonny Dykes for TCU. Each have had success, right? Dave had the Big 12 championship, the Sugar Bowl win, the top 5 final ranking, and TCU made it to the national championship game without winning the Big 12. But they both have had their success. They've had their days at their schools, and both looked like they were on the hottest seat possible within the last year. And yet here they are, going up against each other again. The two Big 12 coaches who both claim that their favorite band of all time is the Dave Matthews Band. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, unless you live under the Kinsey Street Bridge in Chicago, in which case there is. But looking at what they've struggled at this season, for both it's been defense. For Dave Aranda, it's been more glaring because he's the defensive play caller and he's the defensive guy. He came in as a DC. He had this reputation for building great defenses, and right now it's in the 100s. It's not good at all. I was going to say it's nothing to write home about, but it's not even that. It's not good. Okay. And there's been games that have been so frustrating. Like Kansas State, that game looks a little bit better now, but that was frustrating at the time. Oklahoma State, very frustrating at the time. That's a school that's now starting a wide receiver at quarterback. Okay. That was able to equal their season high of point output against you in a game that you still won. And Dave Aranda said he watched a lot of film during the bye week and said there is something that might have contributed to Baylor's defensive struggles this year, something that he's hopefully more prepared for in the second half of the season.
Yeah, we're getting a bunch of just irregular formations and motions and kind of things that fit kind of outside the box. I think you'll think Oklahoma State, but there's just different versions of that. TCU's been in the past a team that can very much do that. Up to this point this year, they haven't done that. We're fully expecting for them to do that versus us. And so to kind of have that knowledge and then to work on it and spend the time on it gives you the best chance come Saturday morning.
Interesting. So we heard a lot about this after the Oklahoma State game, right? Oh, trick plays and this formation, this. And like I did say, like I'm sympathetic towards that. Oklahoma State, especially, they just fired Gundy. Like they were just kind of letting it all hang out, so to speak. And Baylor did play well in the second half of that game. I think they only gave up 7 in the second half. But still, it was like 450 yards to Oklahoma State. Gave up 500 yards to Kansas State the last game they played. Like that's too many yards, man. That's too many. But it's not a huge vote of confidence to hear, well, sometimes we're just get some irregular formation. So basically, if a team plays it straight lace against us, if we played the old Georgia Tech teams that would run the triple option, at least we would know what's coming. And that's fine. Or Gundy's Oklahoma State, as Dave Aranda said in the presser this year, he was like, they were the only team that was running the same plays 6 or 7 or 8 times in a game. So if you do that, Baylor's going to stop you. If you switch up your formations a little bit, the way any defense would do, if you switch up your formations a little bit, we might be screwed. We might be cooked, chat. That might be what's happening here. And it's funny, when I first heard this, I thought, well, Kendall Briles, he's going to switch up some things. Of course. I mean, his offense has had teams in a blender, right? But a year and a half ago, TCU fans were out on Kendall Briles. Like they didn't want, like the offense had grown stale, and it was that way at Arkansas as well for Kendall. But I think he's really started to figure some things out in the last year and a half, since kind of midway through his first season at TCU, which was 2023. And so maybe they can mix it up. Like they Art and Kendall and Philip Montgomery, like they really confused teams 10 years ago in that no one else was really running that offense. So they weren't practicing against it ever. And so 5 days to prepare for it. And it's a lot tougher to stop. They lost 2 major bowl games because those teams had a lot longer to prepare for it. Now that's not the case. In the 10 years since, there's been a lot of teams that have run that kind of offense, no longer kind of run that offense. And so Kendall has had to adapt. Jeff Lebby had to adapt at Ole Miss to great results. Actually, they got to the Sugar Bowl in 2021, if you remember that, and they scored 7 points in the Sugar Bowl game. So I don't know. Is that the reason why Baylor's struggling right now? They've had some injuries, which I think is probably more likely to be the point of the struggle than teams use different formations. You basically have 2 defensive coordinators on the staff. I don't love hearing that. I don't love hearing that. But what I do love hearing is what Baylor's doing for Sawyer Robertson right now, because they went out in the transfer portal and they helped Sawyer a lot. Now the university as a whole is helping Sawyer towards a goal that has only been achieved one time in Baylor's history. We'll tell you how this campaign is popping off next on Locked On Baylor. But first, let's talk about Game Time, the only place I go to buy my tickets. In fact, I went to go see one of the best college sports programs in the country last weekend, got off the train, walked to the arena, and then, only then, did I buy my Game Time tickets, because they're the only spot for last-minute tickets. College football is in full swing, and we all couldn't be more excited. But let's be real. Getting tickets can actually feel like more of a battle than the game itself, right? The queues, the hidden fees, the prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans, and I'm a fan. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay, okay? The app makes it super simple. I can see the exact view from my seats before buying. I get zone deals, pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. And I'm not surprised by the hidden fees at checkout, which is my favorite part of it. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time and do it today. What I love now is what Matt Mosley talked about last month is starting to come to fruition a little bit. What he said when talking about Sawyer Robertson was Sawyer should be a Heisman candidate. And when RG3 was in that same seat almost 15 years ago, Baylor put a full court press. Any national media that came into town, any national show that wanted to talk to Robert Griffin III, talked to Robert Griffin III. And RG3 was the best player in college football that year. That's why he won the Heisman. But it certainly did not hurt that he was also a very charismatic, funny, fun-loving guy. That never hurt RG3, right? It didn't. And we didn't really hear a lot from Sawyer. You'd hear from him after the games, but he wasn't on national radio shows, wasn't on TV shows. He still isn't, by the way. And it's tough to fall in love with a Heisman Trophy winner just because of how well they play on the field. And I know that sounds silly. It's not going to be the last thing I say in this segment that sounds silly. But now there's a full court press, or the beginnings of a full court press. For the first time ever, I think, in Dave Aranda's tenure, he did his Monday press conference, and then Sawyer Robertson talked. I don't think they've ever had a player talk at one of those press conferences. And Jerry Hill actually asked Dave during his portion of the press conference, like, should we be thinking about Sawyer in that upper echelon of college football players in 2025?
Probably not a fair question to ask, but with the numbers that he's put up, should he be in the Heisman conversation?
You know, I think he's going to continue to win. I think he's going to continue to be in moments where he's going to shine. I think so. Yeah. I think, I don't think there's going to be a moment that's going to be too big for him. And I think this team is going to fight for him, and they're not going to let him down. And I think you put him in a situation where there's a chance to win it, he's going to win it. And so I think it's only going to get bigger.
And here's the situation. They know exactly what they're doing here. Baylor athletic comms, like they knew this was time because he's halfway through the season. He's leading the country in passing yards and touchdowns. Like it's time to start talking about Sawyer Robertson, the Heisman Trophy candidate. They knew it was time to do that. And they do it in a week where if Sawyer's the best quarterback in America, which I think he is, he's about to face probably the second best in terms of just the raw numbers. Like obviously there's talks of Ty Simpson and Carson Beck and Mateer before he got hurt. But these are the top two quarterbacks in the major statistical categories in yards and yards per game and touchdowns. 1 and 2 are Sawyer Robertson and Josh Hoover. Okay. They have combined for 3,900 yards of passing this year, 37 touchdowns. There's no matchup this weekend that is going to feature two more prolific quarterbacks than this matchup right here. And so when all that news gets out there, and if Sawyer wins the game and outplays Josh Hoover, then it all starts to pick up. It all starts to pick up from there. But what sucks is that there needs to be a press campaign. That's what sucks. Should Baylor have done it sooner? Probably. But I'll also be on their side in that it stinks that we have to do that. The numbers should be speaking for itself, but they don't. Like I challenge you right now, as you're watching or listening on your phone or your tablet, as long as you're not driving, how about you go and Google Heisman candidates 2025, Heisman rankings 2025. And tell me how many links it takes you to find any list that has either of these two guys on there. It's Ty Simpson. It's Carson Beck. It's Dante Moore. It's all these other quarterbacks who aren't as good, who don't put up as good a numbers as these guys do. And the response to that, for those who don't watch Sawyer Robertson and Josh Hoover every week, the response to what I just said would be, oh, well, they play in the Big 12. What do you expect? Minor league, blah, blah, blah. That's all you're going to hear, which, again, sucks. It's almost like the Big 12 had a Heisman Trophy winner last year. And here's the other silly thing I'm going to say in this segment. The Big 12 needs Sawyer Robertson to win the Heisman Trophy. Is it a long shot because of his popularity and this conference's popularity? Yes. But the best thing that could happen to the Big 12 this year would be 2 teams in the college football playoff, which is looking like a stretch at this point, halfway through the season, but still definitely possible, and Sawyer Robertson winning the Heisman Trophy. But Cam, you just told me, like, they just had the Heisman Trophy winner last year in Travis Hunter. Obviously, you could play in the Big 12 and win the Heisman Trophy. Yeah, you know what? Travis Hunter won the Heisman last year for 3 reasons. First reason is he was the best player in college football. But we know that the Heisman Trophy can become a popularity contest. So the two other reasons why he won was the other guy who was even close was at a much smaller school in a smaller conference in Ashton Genty. And the big reason why Travis Hunter won the Heisman last year was because Deion Sanders was his coach. And that's not fair. That's not fair because Travis Hunter should have won the Heisman last year because he was the best player in college football. But you know, and I know that if Kevin Sumlin was his coach, he might not have won the thing. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. Let's look in the mirror here. You know, if Mike Norvell was his coach, I don't know if he wins the Heisman Trophy. But because there were so many eyeballs on that program, because Deion Sanders is the coach and Deion Sanders' son was throwing him the football, that's what puts him over the top. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. And so that's why Baylor and certainly the Big 12 will try to push for this. And whichever quarterback wins this weekend, you're going to start to hear more of a campaign from the Big 12 about it. Probably more likely if it's Sawyer, but if it's Josh Hoover too, they'll start to put out those numbers. Big 12 will start to put out that, oh, you know, Josh Hoover now has the most touchdowns in America. Like, you'll start to see more of that. So I know it sounds contradictory. I know it sounds convoluted a little bit too, but the Big 12 needs this, even though they just had a Heisman Trophy winner last year. Because people around America, they don't see Colorado as a Big 12 school. They see it as Deion Sanders' school. They don't even see him as the Colorado Buffaloes. They see him as the Colorado Fighting Primes. And again, that's not supposed to be disrespectful to Travis Hunter. He should have won the Heisman because he was the best player in college football. But let's be honest. If it wasn't Deion Sanders, with how close those numbers were and how close that voting was, if Deion Sanders wasn't his coach, I don't know if he does it. Brent Venables is his coach. I don't know if he's winning the Heisman Trophy. Kyle Whittingham is his coach. I don't know. Sonny Dykes is his coach. Dave Aranda, I don't think he does. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We are on the path towards 5,000 subscribers, and we're getting very, very close, y'all. So be sure to like and subscribe. It helps me keep my job, and leave the comments below to tell me how stupid I am or how I am just spot on and also sound great and look great, and that would help too. Thank you guys for making it your first listen today and every day. Really appreciate you guys in this community that we've built here. We're going to be talking TCU all week, so maybe give me your favorite rivalry memories down in the comment section below, and we will catch you on the next edition of your favorite show, and that is, of course, Locked On Baylor.